She won't know what that means.
This is I've been manifesting this for how many months have we been talking about this?
Yeah, don't be a creep.
I mean, this is the only chance I have to form the greatest podcast power couple known to man.
The greatest podcast power couple is Dave and Matt. Done.
Facts. Greetings, I'm your host, Jason Miles, and welcome to our bi-monthly stream with our good friends Matt and David over at Left Reckoning. Before we start, if you're new to the channel, please hit like, subscribe, and don't forget to ring that notification bell so you're alerted whenever we go live. Also, if you're watching on the Left Reckoning channel, give TIR a like and a sub. If you're watching on TIR, give Left Reckoning a like and a sub. That simple passive gesture goes a long way in the support of independent left media. Also, after the show, if you're a patron, we'll be going to the phones to take calls and hear what you have to say about the topics discussed on this show. For those of you that are subscribers and patrons, thank you for your continued support. That is the fuel in the engine of the TIR machine. If you'd like to wear your support, let people know with TIR merch. And who can talk about that better than the faceless voice of reason, M. Tucson. Please welcome M. Tucson.
Hello, hello. Contrary to Jason's opinion, I do have a face.
No.
I'm going to cover your face with the hoodie now.
You know,
there we go.
No one saw your face. Did I tell you? I think I might have mentioned this at the live show. Someone was asking, were you there? And you were standing next to that person. And I was like, oh, she was standing right next to you. He's like, what? Where? I'm like, and this is why we'll never show her face.
There you go.
Just so we can do that one thing.
It's more fun that way.
I think so. I think so.
Yeah. Totally worth it.
I think so.
You know what else is worth it?
What else is worth it?
TIR merch.
Oh!
Gotta love it. Controversial symbol. Sure to be a conversation starter.
Yes. That's what we aim to do here. Start uncomfortable conversations.
Uncomfortable conversations on the subway. And strange people want to talk to you about your clothes. What does that mean, young lady, young man? You can talk to them about this podcast.
What is Anglo-pessimism? What is that? I'm an Anglo. Maybe I don't like things all the time. I don't know if I'm a pessimist.
Do we need a name for our pessimism?
And then you say, have you met Daniel Bessner?
That's right. He's a black pill in the form of a person. I like the guy personally.
Speaking of Daniel Bessner, Pascal Robert was just on Daniel Bessner's podcast, American Prestige.
Was he smiling?
So shout out to Daniel Bessner.
Was he smiling as he is on this mouse pad?
I think he was grinning the whole time.
I believe it. Fessner's funny.
But it's
Shout out to
audio.
Derek, his partner.
Bessner's been doing something that I don't do, which is posting the angry things people say about him on his show, which I think is hilarious.
He gets a lot of attacks. He's the pretty boy of the show. It's kind of he's a doctor, isn't he? Just like
he doesn't just play a doctor on TV.
he's actually a doctor.
He's actually a doctor.
A doctor, honey.
Also, there was something that I forgot to mention that I've been forgetting to mention, that if you are a patron or you're even thinking about becoming a patron, we have the full live New York show. Left is Best. Give them a revolution. The full video and full audio. You can see it all. Can you see MT? Probably not, because we hid her off to the side. Strategic.
Yeah, didn't tell the cameraman what to look for.
No.
Oh,
we won't get into the cameraman. Someone said they thought Pascal was a pretty boy. They are right. Speaking of the pretty boy, let's bring in my homie, my dog, the man of the Mau Mau Hour. He is the Pascal Robert.
Peace and greetings to the chat. Peace and greetings to the audience. Peace and greetings, Jason Miles. Peace and greetings, M2 Son. What it is right now.
You are in a very good mood. This is going to be a great show. You're in a good mood. Another person in a good mood. He is known as David with the good hair. Please welcome David Griscom.
How's it going, friends?
It's going great. It looks like we're having a mustache off here, David.
Yeah, we're going for it.
Oh
That's the thing is, there's a little period of time where Matt and I both had long hair, and I'd wait till he shaved his mustache before growing mine out, because there's something about two long-haired dudes with mustaches next to each other on camera all the time that I don't think really worked.
I was on the fence. I was because Tucson always gives me shit when I shave, but I was like, I'm going on my booze show tomorrow to talk about leftism and love, or loving a leftist, or some Valentine's Day thing. So I had to look good, Tucson.
You do?
You have a different personality. That's very nice of you to say, David, but you don't have to deal with this person who becomes someone else when he has a mustache. I call him jerk ass Jason. Jerk ass Jason shows no grace.
I'm entering my Ron O'Neal phase of this mustache.
So much nicer with the beard. I have no idea.
All the white people now are Googling who Ron O'Neal is.
He's a pusher. He's a Superfly.
Speaking of Ron O'Neal, he may be the Ron O'Neal of North Dakota. Please welcome Matt Leck.
Oh, yeah, I get that all the time.
Matt Leck. What it is right now.
We gotta get Pascal in the booth right now.
There is a lot of porn stashes on the screen right now. This looks like
You're right.
This looks all kinds of. I'm looking on the screen and I'm reading what Andy Williams just wrote, and I'm like, oh damn, this looks inappropriate. Everything on the screen right now looks in. Matt's wearing a tank top knowing it's 12 degrees outside.
So merch, merch.
The official
what's
Left
funny?
Reckoning tank top.
Oh, cool.
You know what's hella funny? Like, no bullshit. I'm treating this tomorrow show like when you're finna go to the mall to go try to walk by the girl you like that works at Foot Locker. I got my Left Reckoning tank ready.
Hell yeah.
Oh,
So I can show off all the taco meat.
Taco meat, man. Seriously, man. Man nipples and taco meat.
That's a lot. That's a lot. I wish you had a beard for this.
This guy's going on a show talking about loving the left, with a dad bod, man nipples, and taco meat.
Dad bod, small rods. Am I right?
Bod, small. Dang. That's
Jason
so
with a beard
mean.
would never.
Jason with the beard would probably wear a button up. Jason with the mustache is gonna wear a tank top.
Unbelievable.
I might even do my segment outside.
See, because you're jerk ass Jason now.
Jerk ass Jason. Okay. I'm gonna stop being jerk ass Jason. Because there's important things we have to talk about today on Revolutionary Reckoning. I'm sorry, I played the wrong intro music. But I will play the correct outro music for the Revolutionary Reckoning show. What we do here, if you're new to what we do here, we do a news show where we cover some topics that are a little more evergreen. And Pascal Robert, we're going to kick it off with you, talking about what's going on in Jackson, Mississippi. We're also starting off with you because it's February.
Oh,
But seriously,
I'm the blackest of the history months.
yours. Yes. Have we had a black person on yet?
No, we will to Saturday.
M2 Sun's been here. That counts.
That's true, right?
We had this long conversation. We were finally going to have all these black people, and then there's like Star Bear. And
We pushed him towards the middle and end of the month.
okay, then I won't feel okay. Well, but seriously, you're bringing something that I haven't seen too much discussion about: the fact that the Republican state legislature majority of Mississippi is creating a judicial district to handle crime in predominantly Democratic and Black Jackson, Mississippi. This is from an article in the Mississippi Today publication. A white supermajority of the Mississippi House voted after an intense 4-hour-plus debate to create a separate court system and an expanded police force within the city of Jackson, the blackest city in America, that would be appointed completely by white state officials. If House Bill 1020 becomes law later this session, the white Chief Justice of the Mississippi Supreme Court would appoint 2 judges to oversee a new district within the city, one that includes all of the city's majority white neighborhoods, among other areas. The white state attorney general would appoint 4 prosecutors, a court clerk, and 4 public defenders for the new district. The white state public safety commissioner would oversee an expanded Capitol police force run currently by a white chief. The appointments by state officials would occur in lieu of judges and prosecutors being elected by local residents of Jackson and Hinds County, as in the case in every other municipality and country in the state. Tell us what this means for people of Jackson, a city that has some hard troubles of lately, especially with things like their drinking water.
Right. Well, this is a really profound development for a variety of reasons. For those who are not aware, Jackson, Mississippi, in recent history, was considered to be one of the more radical, transformative municipal developments under the Jackson Kush plan, where friend of show Kali Akuno, who's been on our program, had a plan to develop a cooperative economic model, much in the lines with the Malcolm X Grassroots Association that comes out of the Republic of New Africa movement of the 60s. For those who are not aware, the Republic of New Africa was a kind of radical socialist black nationalist movement that argued to have black people in the South have dominion and control over certain actual states and be able to develop cooperative socialist economies. And the Malcolm X Grassroots movement developed from that movement, and recently was able to develop a plan to not only create a cooperative economic model in Jackson, Mississippi, but with the cooperation of the Lumumba administration, they were able to actually elect a government that was friendly to their agenda. Now, for those of you who don't know, which is obvious, Mississippi is not exactly known to be the most progressive, socialist-friendly state in the country. Jackson being its capital, the state has always been not only somewhat distrusting of the agenda of the Jackson Kush plan and the attempt to try to give Black residents in that area dominion and control of the economic sovereignty. But they've been outwardly hostile in attempting to sabotage the efforts of the Lumumba administration to effectively control the situation in that municipality. And what has happened in terms of the recent decision of the state legislature is that they are doing something unprecedented. Understand that basically the political situation in the legislature of Mississippi is not only divided along party lines, but divided along racial lines. Because it is in the South, we shouldn't be surprised that the majority of the legislature are Republicans, but they're also, white conservatives. At the same time, the few blacks that are in the legislature are also in the Democratic Party. One of the consequences of this is that the majority white Republican legislature has set forth a plan to basically strip Jackson, Mississippi's capacity to elect not only its judges and municipal police force, but to put that in the hands of the legislature as well as the Supreme Court and the state administrations, who have always been hostile to the attempt of Jackson to maintain dominion and control of its affairs, and now have that reactionary right wing and probably also a white majority govern or choose who those institutions will be made up of in perpetuity, which is a significant attempt to remove sovereignty from Jackson. And if you don't think there's a correlation between the desire of the municipal government of Jackson to implement this kind of progressive cooperative economic model under the Jackson Kush plan and the Lumumba administration being a progressive or believed to be one of the more progressive Black administrations in the South, then I have a bridge in Brooklyn to sell you. But at the same time, we do have to realize that Jackson, Mississippi does have a Black political class, and there are class tensions that exist between the government, the mayoralty of Jackson, and people like Kali Akuno and the Jackson Kush movement organizers as well. But at the same time, this combined with the water shortage problem, the water problems they've had as well, illustrates that the state of Mississippi is not interested in seeing a progressive, left-leaning political project of Black political sovereignty within its jurisdiction, and will do everything possible to sabotage it.
Does anybody have any comments?
I mean, I wonder how credible the threat is, just because we've been seeing the Republicans been trying to play this game. Like, Republicans love to talk about small government, local government. They don't like big government, but they don't like when local government starts going up against, the shit that they want to do. I mean, I'm just saying, because here in Austin, there's been like a historical fascination with like weird ass Republicans to try to turn Austin into like a DC style thing, where the city is run by the state instead of the city being run by the people like you would want it to be. But it never seems to get off the ground. But I feel like in Mississippi, there might be more of a concerted push to do this versus than a couple folks trying to do some theater.
Oh no, because the legislation has already passed. I mean, I ultimately I think this is going to be challenged in federal courts, and it's going to be the ultimate decision is probably going to be decided there, because we already can see that the state Supreme Court in Mississippi is hostile to the city of Jackson. And whatever kind of fortune they have in the federal courts, I wish them well. But the bottom line is that this, as far as we can see right now, this plan is probably going to go through, and it's going to take major legislation, major judicial action, and on the part of the municipality to fight this, because Jackson, Mississippi legislature has had Jackson in the sights for a long time.
Where's the goddamn federal government when you need them? Like, seriously, it's crazy the shit that Republicans are doing across this country right now, and they get no pushback from the federal government. From like this to like a governor of a state here, like running parallel border operations, something that a nation should be setting, not a governor of a state. And the Biden administration is completely out to lunch on all of these things. It's been amazing to me to watch this. Even like we know what the Democratic Party is, we know where their interests are, but like even for like their political theater, their political base, like showing up for these fights makes a lot of sense to me. Like beyond just the moral and like political reasoning, just like from like the show of it, to come up against this Republican Party that you say is like the most threatening and dangerous and anti-democratic force in American society.
Do you think it has anything to do with Mississippi not really having anything to offer for Democrats in general and having a pretty small population? It's not a swing state. It's just
Yeah, and I mean that's why something like that, which could be but it's a story that could resonate broadly just because of that, like small government, you have control over your own backyard sort of politics. That like, who cares who directly, like this is a national game, right? Like, go in and get caught, like be fighting for something like that, and of course, I mean. Yeah, I think they don't want to set that.
Also, I think they're just like, frankly, though, like I think they're just tuned out. Like, really
not interested. Yeah,
like they don't get this. This doesn't get to DC.
Once election time comes around, maybe we'll be able to give some attention to it.
There's no culture war here.
Yeah. Well, there could be. I mean, like,
you
not
could
to trivialize it and say it's culture war, but like you could do the kind of like neoliberal democratic thing here for sure. But the upside for them, I guess, they find to be minuscule, and like they're not interested in protecting these people from what is, I mean, just a very clear attempt, not just to like do nasty Republican stuff, but to deny people their rights in a democracy to be able to decide who's in charge, right? Which you should be able to do.
I think if Mississippi and Jackson particularly was governed by a certain type of political administration that was policy and administratively in line with the corporate Democrat agenda, i.e., Hakeem Jeffries kind of what's the guy who's the new governor of Maryland, Wes Moore, Hakeem Jeffries type aesthetic of the neoliberal corporatist Trojan horse black political administration. I think you would see more national MSNBC type media, as well as brouhaha in the channels of the federal government. But because this is a municipality that has the patina of a left-seeming government that has been in line with a radical socialist agenda, it's not going to seem chic for the corporate Democratic Party to try to protect their interests.
And it's also just like a fire they don't want to give any oxygen to. Right, they don't want that to spread. Yeah, no, that's a great point.
No, that's yes. Well, moving on. Last time we had a revolutionary reckoning, it was Pascal that brought up tech layoffs highlighting Amazon, but it looks like Zoom, who had a massive growth during the early days of the pandemic, is going to be laying off a whopping 15% of its workforce, citing the uncertainty of the global economy. For the reason, and of course, its rapid growth as well. David, what is going on with these tech companies and these massive layoffs?
Well, this one's interesting because Zoom is a company that, typically when you talk about tech companies, it's all speculation, right? It's this idea that eventually there's going to just be such dominance that there'll be massive returns on investment. That's why you talk about a lot of companies like Uber, for example, like, weren't really ever making profits, but it was this idea that they were just going to be able to saturate and control the market. Zoom was something that was really small that exploded because of particular conditions, being the pandemic that forced a lot of people to work from home, and then Zoom exploded. I mean, I don't know. It's only a couple of years ago, but I remember feeling a little fancy suggesting to Michael when we got sent home. I was like, well, I've been hearing about this new technology called Zoom. Maybe we should use that to record the podcast. Me thinking I was being clever, thinking the same thing 300 million other Americans were thinking. But this one is interesting to me because, like, yeah, if you've been paying attention, the tech industry has been hit with a significant amount of layoffs, and the Zoom one, like, look, there's like a kind of straight business paper way to report on this. Zoom doesn't know what to do in the kind of post-lockdown era, and because it's so associated with a time that was so horrible for so many people. It also just has like bad brand recognition, right? You think about Zoom, you think about all of those kind of sad excuses for person-to-person meetups and things like that. So there's the kind of business strategy about Zoom, what it will be able to do in the future. They're trying to pivot to utilizing other kind of add-ons that other companies use, like calendar updates and email things, just to basically make it competitive with Google's lineup. But what I think that this really shows is that there's something that is happening in the tech world. So not just Zoom, but across the tech world, where this industry that had been pumped with so much money, and remembered that it was a lot of money that was going into this idea that like a lot of these tech companies were going, they were the future, they were going to promise massive returns, but it also was being done in a period of time where interest rates were really low, which meant that investors were trying to find things that were going to grow very quickly and exponentially. And you saw the vast majority of like the capitalist class, like the people with money. And remember, it's not like when we make these arguments about capitalists, it's not just the argument that they have more than others, right? That's certainly a part of it. But there's the socialist critique, which is also, this is not the best way to run a society, right? Wherein the people who get to make the decisions on what gets invested in and what doesn't get invested in are people just trying to chase a dollar. And what's happening right now in the tech market is all of the kind of ideas of like rational planning that was happening under the free market system is being shown to be false, because all of these companies, when they don't have that advantage of having really access to really, really cheap money, they're starting to have to look at their company and say, oh, wait a second, this actually doesn't have any real possibility of being profitable. Oh, wait a second. We are the fundamentals of our business are fairly weak. And we also don't have a lot of like base capital or like base structure here. Like if you own a factory, a car factory, like you own a factory and a piece of land and all this stuff. A lot of these companies are built around like ideas. And the good thing about an idea is an idea can get really, really hot and attract a lot of money really quickly. But when things get bad, the floor is really, really low there. So the tech companies are getting hit with a capitalist investor class right now that is saying, we want strong fundamentals in what we're going to invest in and what we're not going to invest in. So, Zoom's certainly struggling because of the change in like the actual dynamics of work in this country, where Zoom as a platform is becoming less attractive. But it's not just Zoom; it's all of these companies that are facing significant layoffs, and it shows too why, as a left movement, a lot of times, people on the left correctly recognize that there's a certain kind of worker that is attracted to left politics, right? And we definitely need to be paying attention to the fact that tends to be a more credentialed, maybe even at times like higher wage earning worker. But these kind of moments show that we're all sort of sitting under the same kind of system. And while we should certainly be saying we need to be expanding and growing, continuing to have strong presence in tech industry in places like this is important, because those people are on the chopping block, and those people have a lot of necessary skills and understandings of systems that we certainly want to be having as a part of any kind of winning coalition in the future.
Ooh, Pascal, I know you have something to add.
No, it's a really interesting consideration, because if you look at the actual left coalition that we have now in America, assuming that you buy into the Popular Front strategy of the kind of progressive, socialist friendly left working with the Democratic Party, they tend to be college educated people, quite frankly. I mean, whether we like it or not, the reality of the fact is that the left flank of capital right now in America is not populated really with like working class, lumpen, or even proletarian folk. It's really much more populated with folk who have some level of college education. I don't think that's necessarily a good prognostication for the future of the left, but it is the reality. And the question becomes, how do we translate that into policy agendas that actually become inclusive for people that we always claim that we're actually concerned about? And it's a conundrum that I always find myself struggling with, and I don't really have the answer for it, quite frankly.
Matt Karp had a really good piece on class de-alignment in Jacobin, and people get so pissy with Matt Karp. I think his stuff has been
I
excellent.
watched him on your show recently, and I loved his take. I just finished writing my piece for Sublation and we watched that thing that he did, and I was like, damn, I wish I would have talked to him beforehand.
No, he 100% gets it, and like, there's been a lot of criticism because, like, I don't want to come off as contradicting myself, so give me a second, right? There is this tendency on like a lot of the people who are like in this left, right? Whatever we want it, however we really want to define it, who see that there's not a lot of representation of like the quote unquote like blue collar worker, and they sort of are like, that's a good thing, and we're just going to try to do care work and like tech workers as like our coalition. And I think that's a dead end strategy. It's not what I'm interested in doing, and I think that you should take very seriously the fact that the message isn't reaching certain groups, and that takes self-criticism, self-understanding. But there's this other tendency, I think, that sees the fact that some groups are like maybe overrepresented and sort of almost wants an implosion. And what I'm trying to say is that, like, if you have a group of people here, what we should be thinking about doing is expanding and growing and figuring out maybe what's not working to attract certain groups, maybe what's being overrepresented in terms of policy and ideology or whatever. But also recognize that in like this economy that we have in this country, like, you are going to want to have people who work in industries like tech, for example, like in that left coalition. Like, if you are in a confrontation with capital, you want people who understand the systems of like mass surveillance, like mass communication, all of these kind of things on your side. And a moment like this, I think, like, makes it really clear too for even people in that class and category. Because, like, if you think about it, if you are a tech worker right now who's been laid off, usually you would say like you're pretty solid, right? But if you think about the amount of people who've been laid off in the past like month and a half, that means that every job opening has a significant amount of candidates, which means that the threat of like prolonged unemployment is sitting on top of those people's heads as well. And like, how can we expand that kind of consciousness with a lot of those workers who I think do think of themselves as separate from like the general like working class, to build up that strong like coalition that's necessary. I mean, one of the things that like should be helpful for building a strong left is the fact that you can have like tremendous amounts of advantage, and a college degree gives you that. A high income wage gives you that. But the general precariousness of labor in this country across the board is really touching everybody. Like, even those groups that are like have advantages are sitting here in a moment where like it's hard to get a job after getting fired from a Zoom or getting fired from a Google.
That's what people were saying that no one was listening to about Elon taking over Twitter. And it's going to be hard to leave whether or not you like the new regime or not, because where are you going to go when everywhere in the industry is doing massive layoffs, probably in the department that you're in. And I was reading in Business Insider, these are middle management level layoffs as well, as most people don't think it's going to be middle management. Like, a lot of middle managers are apparently getting laid off as well. What do you guys think is going to be the thing with H-1B visas? Do you think there's going to be more H-1B visas, and do you think people are going to come in taking less money?
I mean, it's a good question. I mean, the base for that politically is the Democratic Party, and are they going to be willing to have that kind of fight? It's hard to say, because right now, like, on everything, I'm not seeing very much fight from the Biden administration, even on things that are sort of stated parts of that Democratic Party coalition. But like, on that point that you were saying, I think like Sean, as a worker on Twitter, had like a really good like kind of hot take about Musk when he took over Twitter, which is like, Musk is going to come in here and say he's trying to deal with the censorship problem on Twitter, but maybe this is just like a nice face on a coming massive tech worker layoff. And it turns out that he was
Ben Shapiro, like, I think he was talking about the Disney one, but he's like, his response was, well, you play woke games, you win woke prizes. And
what's the woke game that any of these people were playing?
Gay representation in Pixar films is
which, like, look, I know some y'all do some cultural stuff on the show, and like, I think it's definitely an interesting thing to like jump into, but like there's nothing funnier to me than watching fucking like Seb Gorka and like like Ben Shapiro have to like chime in on like every new movie or TV show. Like Seb Gorka did like 20 minutes on The Last of Us, which is a great show, by the way.
Is there
Where
gay
he's
people on it
losing
or
his
something?
mind. What?
Is there gay people on it?
Oh yeah, there's like the episode 3. There's a very long with Nick Offerman, and I can forget the other actor's name. It's like the like the third episode is like really like a gay love story, and it was a great piece of television. It was awesome. And like Seb Gorka's got to sit around for 20 minutes and say things like, in theater, there is a principle that if something does not move the plot forward, it must be jettisoned. It must be jettisoned. And he's just doing that for 20 minutes about like the zombie show, which again, like I think is good, but like I couldn't imagine as a professional having to dedicate as much time as they do to whatever fucking
I don't like I hate remakes. I get people get mad at like, oh, you're remaking and you're throwing in like these characters that are black or whatever. Like, to a certain degree, I kind of will listen to a certain degree because ultimately I don't care. So we're talking about make believe. Like James Bond's not real, dude. Don't get your feelings hurt if Idris Elba plays James Bond. He's not a real dude. It's not your dad.
No, they have real guys like that.
Like I don't care if a character is gay in a movie. Is the movie interesting? But I guess these guys are really that's the cult. Gene Bajlan said last year, he's like, with a Democratic administration, Republicans can't run on tax cuts for only the 1%. So they have to just go ham on culture war stuff. And that's literally what we're seeing. It's just insanity on what was it? Purple Tucson. What was it? Purple M&Ms or something like that.
The green M&M don't have boots anymore. So
Is that right?
She's not sexy and it's unfuckable.
She's not sexy.
Right?
I can't fuck that cartoon.
She wears sensible shoes now.
Yeah. It's just witch hunt energy. That's all the Republicans are tapping into.
Yeah, but the problem is that it has an effect. So a lot of people buy into it. That's
absolutely. It's timeless.
Well, you know what?
Particularly when you have a leftist that offering material politics.
You know why? Because you can have an argument about that shit and you don't have to know anything because it's all feelings.
It's for babies.
You also don't have to care.
Literally for babies. Like, I don't know. Watching the Grammys, people were upset about things that happened in the Grammys. The fuck? It's like,
if I see one more post about the Illuminati and the Grammys, that's like, God, man.
Oh my god!
Oh, did you see the picture of Jay-Z drinking blood?
Oh, that was really good. Yeah, did y'all see that?
Yeah, because wine is not that thick.
Yeah, he's drinking like if I were to guess, like a very, very nice, like 16% ABV Cabernet Sauvignon.
Ooh.
And they're like,
oh,
I've never seen wine that color.
Fancy, Dave.
Look at this guy. Does that go with your pulled pork? If you're gonna eat this brisket, the best pairing of wine.
Hey, we're growing wine in Texas now, so I know a thing or two about it. But
it
was like that conspiracy stuff is so wild to me because it's like the most like. What's the most obvious answer when you see a picture of somebody holding a wine glass with a red liquid in it? Is that like, oh, it's like a nice dark red wine? No, it's blood.
but no, you know what's even funnier is no one talks about all these blood banks in the hood. Places where grocery stores were when I was growing up are being replaced with blood banks.
That's wild.
You know what I mean? And I'm sure Jay-Z has some stock in that.
Yeah, well, I mean, what's the the plasma services and stuff like
dude,
that?
You get ads for that, Matt?
It was all over my college town. I knew people all the time who did it, or it was test for medications, these prac studies. And it was just all kids like who needed more money for fucking dinner.
I don't know. I'm on some list for being a poor boy, and like I get a lot of crazy mail of like the most usury like payday loan things. But my Instagram right now, I just get plasma ads all the time, like donate your plasma, make $1,000 and buy a Mac. But
Yeah, the
computer
market's
time and shit. It's so funny.
Buy a MacBook, so you can sit at McDonald's and not Starbucks with your MacBook and just shit all over all the homeless people that have to hang out there.
It's pretty wild stuff.
That's how they're selling the blood bank. Like, hey, sell some plasma and shit on some poor people.
Flex. Yeah, it's dark,
flex
man.
on some poor people with your plasma.
It's dark.
Your plasma space,
God.
yeah.
I mean, the
God
whole
damn,
thing is
man.
dark. You think Jay-Z, like, if the conversation is like, oh, this gay guy did a thing and he's a demon and it's so evil and Jay-Z's drinking blood, but yeah, no one cares about
Do you think
the real
Jay-Z, do you think he did that thing with the like crypto where to like throw us off the trail of that, like where he just had a guy go to like a few projects and throw flyers down saying here's financial literacy, invest in NFTs? That was cool.
It's a good moment.
Let's run some local news stories applauding that effort. Great job, Jay-Z.
Oh, fuck. All the while he's trying to look like Basquiat.
Yeah, that has been a wild look for him, hasn't it?
That's I wish I could have been there in the salon. And he was like, give me the Basquiat.
Yeah.
It's the attempt to position himself as an intellectual bohemian capitalist.
He's been doing this shit for about 10
Jack
years
Dorsey.
now. What was the video that he did where he had like Marina Abramovich in it and all these big name actors? And he did it at the MoMA.
Oh,
What
I
song
don't
is
remember that.
I don't remember that.
Oh my God, you guys are killing me right now. All these young hip hoppers, you hippity hoppers.
The hip hop bourgeoisie is for real, man. It's a serious kind of force in terms of
It's been since
culture
Fort
industry.
Greene. Was that what it's called? Fort Greene? That where Spike Lee and all those dudes come out of? Rosie Perez.
Yeah, but they didn't have the money like they have now. That's a different
Right.
kind of.
Yeah, huge money.
It didn't take long.
No, it's been 30
Like
years.
MJ money versus LeBron money.
But it is. I mean, it's wild to see just like the mental illness of being super rich, because it's like for Jay-Z, right? Like, you see how like Elon Musk like desperately wants to be like beloved and thought of as like this special guy. Jack Dorsey, who Matt and I have covered a lot, like really like portrays like, he's this sage who has like this deep understanding of the world. It's like Jay-Z, it's like you're Jay-Z, man. Like you're like a fucking like you're an awesome rapper, like you're cool, you got money, and it's just
I
like
know.
to add
Oh,
on this
man.
like, oh, I need people to like think of me as like a Leonardo da Vinci style, like whatever he's going for now,
I don't like all the Golden State Warriors that are in now with the Silicon Valley guys acting like that's all cool shit. Like it's not. You're already like Draymond Green. You don't need to be some dude.
Right.
They moved that
Invest in.
Matt. They moved that place, and the Warriors. And before we pivot to you and your piece, I went to my fair share of Warrior games, and I'll definitely be one of those people that talk shit about the new stadium, even though I've been there a few times. And you could give away Warriors tickets at one point in time. They were so bad, and that stadium. It's got the perfect location. There's literally a train that takes you into it. The freeway exits into the parking lot. It can't be any better, but there's just nothing that's ever been built around it. It's in a bad area, horrible area of town. But when those dudes moved to that new stadium, not too far from where the Giants play in San Francisco, and it was already changing when you went to Oakland already. You were seeing different people showing up to the game because tickets got so expensive when they started winning, much like when the San Francisco Giants, another place you could have given tickets away. No one used to show up to games when the Giants play the Dodgers. The cameraman would just be focused on the fights in the stands, never the game itself. They start winning. You have this new influx of transient tech workers that everyone's wearing a Giants hat. With the Warriors, it was the same thing, and it doesn't even feel the same when you're in the new stadium.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
I mean, I felt so bad for Oakland, losing the Warriors, losing the Raiders. It was just like, I don't know. Something
The
really
Raiders hurt, and I hate the Raiders. I'm not a Raiders fan at all. I'm a Broncos fan, but I'm wearing a Broncos shirt. I hated seeing what happened because it just became empty. There's this massive encampments down International Boulevard, which is the street the stadium's off of, and it's just sad. I think there's like a couple thousand people that go show up to A's games. And when I was a kid, the A's were breaking attendance records. When I was 11 and 12 years old, living in Richmond, California, which is in the East Bay, everybody wanted to be an A's fan. Mark McGwire was there hitting home runs. Jose Canseco was there. Dayton Madonna hitting home runs. Ricky Henderson, the pride of Oakland. Dave Henderson, Dave Stewart. I mean, that team kind of embodied the city like I've never seen a team embody the city. Maybe like the 80s Niners embodied a certain kind of crowd with San Francisco. And to see what that has become is just, it's like I don't even understand the Bay anymore.
Damn. No, man, it's tough. I just like whenever I think about shit here, I always remember Oakland.
It's sad, dude. 2000. They're saying things like, dude, more people showed up to watch Oakland Tech play.
No way.
Which is the high school than the A's.
Man.
Damn.
It's bad, man. Coach will tell you, man, because he's out there. He still lives in Oakland too. So it's sad. But to depress
Moneyball your way out of that.
to depress you guys even more. Matt, you wanted to talk about the GOP's denunciation of socialism and maybe some factors behind that. It could be more than fear of breadlines and gulags. Redistributive policies are the real fear here, along with worker power. From an article in The Racket. On the campaign trail in 2019, Phillips took obvious pride in the wages offered at his Minneapolis and Waiatsa cafes. At Penny's Coffee, we pay a $15 minimum wage because it's the easy thing to do, but the right thing to do, he said while stumping for a $15 federal minimum wage. A cynic could argue that for the 21st wealthiest member of Congress, it's both right and easy. On Thursday, Mariam Karachi took legal action against Penny's, alleging that her employers, Dean Phillips and brother Jay Phillips, willfully failed to compensate her for overtime hours worked at both cafes between 2019 and 2022. Interestingly, as pointed out by a Racket tipster, that same day Phillips voted for the GOP's denunciating the horrors of socialism resolution, a bad faith, largely symbolic motion intended to rid up. Oh God, I'm sorry, my computer cut it off. Sorry, man, my thing is all.
That's fine. I think that's
you
close enough. I got a few here. I just want to shout out the Racket because I do appreciate putting it in the context of that, and that's why Zeta, I believe. Messina could argue that for the 21st century is why this member of Congress is the right thing to do. Just a little bit about Dean Phillips, because he's done this sort of denunciation stuff before. Well, a little bit background. Phillips has an ownership stake in several businesses. This is from a Business Insider list of rich people that represent us, which I think we all love. It's fun to know. We just exactly how good they are at making money. Phillips has an ownership stake in several businesses, various stock holdings, mutual funds, government securities, various life insurance policies, and hedge funds. He is a co-founder of Penny's Coffee, a Minnesota-based coffee shop chain, a former chairman for Talenti Gelato, and former CEO of Phillips Distilling Company. That's, of course, named Phillips. He holds a lot of stock there. Phillips, who joined Congress, reported more than $2 million in liabilities and mortgages. He basically, I don't know if it mentions it there, but Phillips Distilling, that's where his money's from, his grandparents. So this is inherited. And that's sort of his defense against this is, I'm sort of not really involved. It's just, my money working. So don't blame me if there's something going wrong.
Is that the whole critique, by the way?
What?
Isn't that sort of the whole socialist critique of guys like that?
Right, exactly. Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, he's basically like that. Like he used it to run on. Oh, look at my bona fides. We need a businessman who's a Democrat. So it's like, I'm not going to support gay or anti-gay bills or something like that. But Phillips got on my bedside back in 2021. He was a part of a petition of, according to Times of Israel piece, Jewish Democrats accuse colleagues of anti-Semitism over Israel criticism. This is when they did both sides, both Marjorie Taylor Greene and Ilhan Omar. We reject. This is after I can't remember what Marjorie Taylor Greene said. Who cares? We also reject comments from members of Congress accusing Israel of being an apartheid state and committing acts of terrorism. The letter said the statements are anti-Semitic to their core and contribute to a climate that is hostile to many Jews. And then they go into the Holocaust. Actually, it's because Marjorie Taylor Greene was comparing COVID stuff to the Holocaust. So they decided, well, let's condemn that. And also
How is
Ilhan,
she squaring that circle?
don't say apartheid either. And, of course, apartheid at this point is a fairly editorially agreed upon word for what's going on there. And I just wanted to highlight that. I didn't know. I was in Mexico when this denunciation of socialism dropped. I was worried I wasn't going to be able to get back to the country as somebody who does pay $15 a month to the Democratic Socialists of America. That's about as much as my involvement, other than to say, like, go on, everyone, and play nice. But I was curious what you guys felt, if you thought this was like something to be concerned about does this get the ball rolling on like the FBI saying we're going to take out a few divisions and send it to these chapters, make sure they're not up to any no good? Or is this Elizabeth Warren people like posturing, saying we just because we're antitrust doesn't mean you can't vote for us?
No, I was very cognizant when that vote went down in the House, condemning or speaking on the quote unquote victims of socialism. I always find it interesting. No one talks about the victims of capitalism and imperialism, but that's another conversation. One of the things that struck me is that one of the people who voted for that resolution, even though he did give lip service to saying how it was really superfluous, was Hakeem Jeffries. And I noticed that right off the bat, and the number of Democrats who voted along with Republicans on that as well. And what's really interesting, right, is that I looked at this congressional measure, the kind of anti-socialism thing, and I'm looking at the rhetoric coming out of the right, and I'm hearing Trump in various broadcasts talking about the Marxist agenda against me and the Marxist plan. And it's really clear that there are certain elements of the political establishment in this country that are very, very concerned with the fact that there's any popularity of socialism in American society, particularly amongst young people. I put up a poll a couple of days ago that I shared with Jason and a few friends of ours in a text about, even though socialism is increased in popularity since 2016, the popularity has decreased about 5 to 6 or some odd points. So, but there's also been a decrease in popularity in capitalism as well. But what that shows me is that even though there was a higher popularity around the 2016-2020 election, because there has not been really any kind of material move to make this kind of politics a reality, people are really thinking it's kind of like a pie in the sky phenomenon. But at the same time, I think that the power elite in this country have been particularly worried about the fact that socialist politics gain popularity amongst the youth, amongst young people, and the working class. And I do believe that it's an active agenda to try to make that go away as much as possible.
No, I mean, I totally agree with you. And like, there's a few things to note about that vote. It's like, one, I think, like let's understand the context. Like, this is like a stupid rah bill for the Republicans, right? In the sense of like materially what it means. But I don't know, we're not that far out from Paul Robeson sitting in front of the House of Un-American Activities Committee for being a socialist. And maybe to give an example that might be more like recent for people to understand, like, remember when gay marriage was legalized in this country and people sort of thought that wasn't going to come back again, like the kind of stigma and attempts to end gay marriage in this country. Well, we're sitting here in 2023 where, like, I'm worried about family members maybe like having their marriages taken back from like the government here in Texas. So I don't think you can ever sit on your hands when you see shit like this and not think to yourself that, like, oh no, there's 100% a possibility of things ramping up. What I think though is the most notable about this is, one, it wasn't just like a condemnation of like socialism. If you read the text of it, it was straight up like Nazi anti-socialist propaganda, like saying like they put up the debunked like 100 million people killed by socialism. That number includes abortions in the Soviet Union. That includes Nazis that the Soviet Union killed in World War II, right? So, like, note where this stuff is coming from, where they're getting their facts from. That's worrying. And two, like, the thing that I focused on Left Reckoning when you're away, Matt, if you don't, I hope you don't think I
Catch
went in
me
the wrong
up, please.
direction
Sorry.
with this. Was the Ro Khanna vote. Because Ro Khanna voted for it. And, like, I've been somebody who's been very down on Ro Khanna for a long time, particularly because I think that he's somebody who wants to poise himself as somebody to sort of take on the Bernie Sanders energy. And this is somebody who spent the entire time when he was campaigning for Bernie saying he didn't really think Bernie was a socialist. And, for me, like, the Bernie hope is, one, like, he wins, which is great. And two, that it's a really great kind of like public campaign for us to build up understanding of socialism. And, like, so I always mistrusted him from that. And people were saying, oh, well, David, like, oh, whatever, he's just doing this. It doesn't matter. It gives him protection. One, the Republicans are always going to call you a socialist no matter who the fuck you are, if you're not a Republican.
Obama.
Two, if it doesn't mean anything now and he's willing to do it, that makes me more scared about what he'll do when it might actually mean something and giving him like a real advantage in the future. And last, I don't know if y'all saw this, but in his defense of his vote on Twitter, do you know who he cited as inspiration?
Oh, was it the Kaiser?
Bismarck.
Oh, okay.
Oh, hell yeah. My home area, out of Bismarck, North Dakota, baby.
Yeah, no, he was shouting out Bismarck.
Iron Chancellor.
No, he was going after, after Bismarck. And for people, this is a long ass time ago, so people might not know what like the best defense of what he's trying to say is that, like, Bismarck had some like level of like national renewal, progressive in the sense of like it being better than the previous system, like changes to the system in Germany, but he also like waged war on the socialist parties, and banned them and did all this kind of stuff. And I think that to give Roe some fairness, I don't think Roe was citing him in the sense of Bismarck being anti-democracy and anti-socialist party, but like that's also the guy that he's like saying like, oh, that's who we should be modeling some of our politics after. I think it's bad. Roe's been somebody who I've been very worried about getting too big, because I will just say on the other side, I'm also not somebody who can't see the difference between different people who are lining up against us, right? Like, if Roe wants to vote for Medicare for all and we get in a situation where like we have more socialist representation and Roe is a vote there, I'm happy to have him with us on that. But I think it's also important, like, when you do have some level of alliances with people, is knowing that these people want a very, very different thing from you, and in fact, like, don't want you to succeed to a certain level. And I thought it was a really clear moment where a lot of folks stand on this question.
Pascal,
I totally agree with Dave, man. It's just that we should not underestimate, as people who are on the socialist to radical revolutionary socialist left, the possibility of these people coming after us at some point. I mean, don't underestimate at all.
Before we end the show, I mean, did you guys watch that thing on Democracy Now where the guy infiltrated in, was it Denver, the leftist movements, and was getting people to
tell
buy
me about
guns?
that. I don't know about it.
He was an informant for the feds.
Yeah,
and he was convincing people to buy guns and do violence during George Floyd. I mean, it wasn't hard.
White-bearded dude. I mean, there was a lot of that. You heard stories, and it's hard to know. Who knows how much credibility you shouldn't invest much credibility in a whole lot, but stories of that sort of instigatory behavior, and that is I mean, shit. Government's been doing that since 150, 60 years ago.
Since the start, right?
The
thing is, it wasn't hard. It wasn't like he had to get vetted and he did all this infiltration. He if you looked at how he looks like a joke. He's got
that's the thing is it just needs to be a guy that they can get to and give him information and tell him what to do. Like the guy who planted a gun on I forget her name. And by Dapple was just a brother of a fucking cop or a security guy. And they said, I can't remember what the offer was or if it was to expunge shit or what it was, but it got him to try get this woman to fall in love with him and plant a gun in her hoodie.
Yeah, Also, shout out to Emma Vigeland, who's chilling.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Who also makes a good point too, that Kana is suspicious. But Katie Porter voted against the socialism bill, so
she really?
Yeah,
of course.
Red Fun Phallus. Sorry, I just wanted to put that name. That's Red Fun Phallus.
Oh, is that Emma Vigeland in the chat?
Mm-hmm.
Looks like
Yo, Emma, what up?
Who's winning the Super Bowl? Who's winning the Super Bowl?
The Chiefs. The real Dallas Texans. The Chiefs. Going there.
I'm rooting for the Chiefs. I'm worried that the Chiefs aren't going to have the steam though.
I don't want the Chiefs to win because I hate Patrick Mahomes' face.
Okay.
Wow.
I hate his hair.
You stop with the
anti-light skin.
You and your anti-light skin energy, man.
Too many light skinned people, man. Too many light skinned people.
Jason has an endemic contempt for light skinned Negroes. It's really.
I told Brianna, I said, if I'm going to be on the show, you can't have Teray on the show. There's no light skinned people. It has to be.
Oh my God.
What do y'all think about the have you seen any of the script stuff?
I'm so tired of that. Everybody got a
stupid meme, man. It's so good.
These cats are and then I'm like, dude, come on, man. Come on. You really? That's what you, okay. You just walk away at that point. Those are just
I don't think you have to.
If I'm in a room and there's a QAnon guy and NFL and all sports have a script guy, I might go to the QAnon guy and be like, tell me more. Because this guy over here is an idiot.
Oh yeah. You're going QAnon over the NFL script people. Yeah.
The script guys just don't play sports, right? So it's I just ignore them. Who cares? I did when I was in Mexico. There's a basketball court there, and it's funny because I remember when I was playing basketball, in the 2000s, it was all learn your turnaround jumper, which is just an inefficient shot no one does except Michael Jordan and Kobe. And I was practicing step back threes, and I must say I hit at least 4 of them before I got winded. I had to go inside.
There you
go. Tucson, did you read the super chats?
1 second, let me pull it up. So first we have Prairie Fire Kowalski saying Happy Black History Month. Jason told me, okay. Jason told me unprompted at an NYC bar that all super chats in February count towards reparations. He also said, unprompted, as a Pole, I owe less than other whites.
Oh, damn, I'm in on that then too.
I believe I probably did say that.
Yeah, it sounds like
does that sound like something Kowalski thought of Combine?
That's right.
Jason's.
Totally agree. Totally
Kowalski
agree.
hung with us for a while at the bar afterwards.
No, we had a good time after the
Awesome
show.
time.
I was amazed
I
everyone
remember that.
found it. Some of us didn't. Some of us on screen didn't.
Matt disappeared. Matt disappeared.
There was an APB out for Matt
Shout
for
out,
a minute.
shout out to whoever had my cab. I still haven't heard.
Matt,
anybody
if you
say-
knew how committed I was to finding you, I was going through every nook and cranny. I was like, I went in the kitchen at one point looking for just making
Kitchen?
sure you were.
Whoa.
It's like I don't want to make an RFK after the LA ballroom show. Anyway.
We have super chat from JB who
Mhm.
says Jason is jealous. Mahomes is better than Elway. I don't know what that means, but it sounds like fighting words.
It is fighting words because Mahomes played with the talent that Elway had on both sides of the ball to go to 3 Super Bowls. Even though he lost, Elway only played with 2 Hall of Famers, right? Him, I think, is Steve Atwater in the Hall of Fame? I know Terrell Davis is in the Hall of Fame. And Terrell Davis only comes the last, 4 years?
McCaffrey make it?
Hell no.
Wasn't there a linebacker?
I don't think Tom Jackson's in the Hall of Fame. I don't think Carl Mecklenburg's in the Hall of Fame. Maybe
Whoever
Randy
desi-
Bradshaw.
whoever-
Randy Bradshaw was before Elway.
Whoever redesigned those uniforms should be in the Hall of Fame because that.
So yeah, Mahomes is.
Oh
is
yeah,
in
how
it.
stoked are you? Did y'all get Peyton?
I mean, Sean Payton is the coach of the Denver Broncos. We'll see. We'll see. Giving up a number
Talking
one for Sean Payton means you have to do a lot of free agency moves. It means you have to mortgage.
Trade a pick for a coach.
He was
It's
still.
old
yeah,
school
that's-
shit, dude.
that's
Isn't that
good.
awesome?
Yeah.
I'm sure that's good.
Did you ever see
That's
the
okay.
movie? What was the movie with Will Ferrell? The basketball
Brothers?
and semi-pro. You know what I'm
Oh, yeah.
talking about?
My bro.
Where they trade one of the dudes for a washing machine. Just fucked up.
Well,
Uh,
we're
Can I
hitting
add
our
this
Oh.
one last comment?
Of course.
It's not a super chat, but Born Sinner Cold World says, "Isn't all Jason's kids light skin?" How does that figure in?
Every single one.
Every
Yeah,
single one
they
of
are.
them. There's layers
They
to
are.
this.
They are. They are all beige kids that don't look like mine whenever we're together.
Jason is living proof that the theory that black is dominant is a false.
Yeah. Yeah. None of those kids. Not near one of them. It's it just is what it is. Thank you again, Matt and David, for coming on and joining us. If you, the listening, viewing audience, haven't done it yet, please hit like and subscribe and the notification bell so you're alerted whenever we go live. Also, go over and give a like to Left Reckoning. Again, I can't say enough how that small gesture goes a long way in the support of independent left media. Also, if you're enjoying this, become a patron and watch the NYC show, live in its entirety, where you can see us all on stage. You can see the hard work that Jordan and Quinn did to make the backdrop screens. I was watching a little bit of that when we got the file and it was downloading, and I was like, damn, that shit look good. I was like real proud of that. So thank you once again to super producer Jordan, Quinn for holding down the merch, Sam and Emma for coming on. Before we sign off, I just want to touch on something I was reading about real quick. I haven't seen anybody talking about this, but the Skid Row Housing Trust is facing insolvency and could possibly be facing foreclosure, which would spell doom for many of the people in the 2,000 units they oversee. from an article in the LA Times. For more than 3 decades, the trust has been a mainstay of Los Angeles nonprofit housing community, building and managing nearly 2,000 units of single residence, occupants, buildings, and permanent supportive housing. Skid Row Housing Trust is not only an institution in the region for providing much needed housing for people on the margins, it really led in creating a norm of permanent supportive housing, said Miguel Santana, president and chief executive of the Weingart Foundation, which chipped in $200,000 late last year to help keep the organization solvent. The Hilton Foundation and Cedars-Sinai philanthropic arm also donated $250,000 and $150,000 respectively to help the trust stay afloat in their near term. The footprint in LA is significant, says Santana. They have been advocates for preserving housing for people who most need it. So it's unfortunate that it's gotten to this point with their finances where they're not able to maintain the breadth of assets they have. But several years of running deficits of as much as $14 million per year, according to their own financial disclosures, left the organization struggling to pay employees and pay basic bills. Now, the Skid Row Housing Trust started off as activists trying to prevent prime downtown Los Angeles real estate from becoming more office space. Since 1989, they have taken over much of the older, dilapidated buildings in downtown LA and turned them into housing for the unhoused and permanent supportive housing units as well, which is something that we talk about so much on this show, that housing alone is not the answer. We need permanent supportive housing that provides services for people. But with the passing of Bill HHH, designed to build more affordable housing, say inverted quotes, affordable housing units, they pivoted to new construction. As you can imagine, the wear and tear of these units gets exacerbated with the clients they serve. It doesn't take much for a tenant to have a meltdown and destroy a unit. As I've said before, my second day at the emergency shelter, someone set their room on fire and destroyed 4 floors. If you're neglecting your maintenance duties on your existing units to build state-of-the-art new housing, your original older ones will be uninhabitable in no time. Now, with Skid Row Housing Trust facing insolvency, what happens to all this downtown real estate? What does affordable housing really translate to for the average Angelino? Affordable housing in places like Los Angeles have 30 to 35-year covenants. These covenants state that for that amount of time, the buildings have to be affordable and then they can adjust to market rate. I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that most people that rent apartments that are below market rate are not checking to see how long they have before a covenant runs out and their rent drastically increases. In the case of the Hillside Villa apartments in LA County, the tenants were facing 300% rent increases as the developer that built the units did so with interest-free government loans in 1988. The developer then agreed to keep the 124 units affordable for 30 years. When the term was up, some tenants saw their rent increase from $1,000 a month to $3,000 a month. A tenant union was formed. Pressure was put on the developer and the city council member who represented their district, Gil Cedillo. Cedillo, under pressure from the tenants union, proposed to have the city use eminent domain to purchase the units and keep them affordable. The developer's lawyers told the city that most of the tenants were on Section 8, so they'd be fine with the increase. And there were only 27 units that were troubled. Well, we did a whole show about Section 8 and how that works and the difficulty around Section 8. So it is insane to assume that it's just a matter of checking a box and getting a payment increase. The sad reality is that the city can't afford these units, and the city attorney was against it all along. It's a slippery slope for most municipalities, and they just don't have the budget for this strategy, especially when so many buildings are facing the same fate. So what is it to be done for the tens of thousands of citizens of Los Angeles that are facing these increases? It is an estimated 11,000 buildings are facing this eminent domain, or not eminent domain. I'm sorry, this covenant coming due. As we've heard today, there is a federal war on labor. Labor is already a shell of what it was before the New Deal in Taft-Hartley, and the precarity of gig work is being upheld by tenacious companies that fight tooth and nail to make sure right-to-work states and employees' rights stay a thing of utopian fever dreams. This is the era of the individual, and all that is needed to find success is mindfulness coupled with a rise and grind mindset, and driving for DoorDash and Uber is just a means to an end. Tech layoffs en masse, affordable housing covenants coming to an end, and we are still dealing with the pandemic. We need help at the federal level to attempt to begin to address these problems. And that won't happen just because we get the right person in office who echoes the right slogans. So until then, do we continue to hope for the best with what we have now? Or do we finally start to see through the facade of the political burlesque and start attempting to build real working class power? Let us know what you think in the champagne room. Thank you, Matt and David. You'll be taking a break from Revolutionary Reckoning for a while. Again, if you haven't done it, please subscribe to Left Reckoning. If you're watching on the Left Reckoning channel, please subscribe to TIR. Thank you guys for watching and commenting in the chat. Let us know what you think in the comments. We are.
Could I throw something in really quick?
Yeah.
If you're looking for what you want to cook on Sunday for your Super Bowl party, in addition to all the awesome bonus content you get on the Left Reckoning Patreon, I have added my world famous official Left Reckoning Texas chili recipe to our Patreon.
Oh,
and you can get that by signing up at patreon.com.
Hey. I'm a vegetarian and I want in on that.
Just when you thought
you can make it with beans. Just if you do eat meat, you can't put beans in the chili, but if you don't eat meat, put beans in there, it'll work perfectly.
Texas people don't like beans in their chili.
I see.
I learned that the hard way. Working in the Gulf for the Texas crew. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see you on the other side in the champagne room where the phone lines will be open. We are
out.
No.
Take care.